Good day, students. Once again, in this video I will be doing a record on the classification and allocation of manufacturing overheads, and I wanted to highlight the fact that we are allocating and classifying only manufacturing overheads. We don't have classification and allocation of prime costs, meaning direct cost. It's only the manufacturing overheads that are not very much clear in terms of where do they belong. So now we need to classify them and we allocate them according to our basis of allocation. We are provided with RWC Ltd information for the two production departments, meaning they have two production departments being Department X and Department Y. And they have two service departments, meaning departments that are rendering the services to other departments. Now, these service departments are Department Y and Department Z. And it says the following data for the year ended 31st of October 2019 was collected in order to allocate and classify the overheads amongst the various departments. And we have these four departments, W, X, Y, Z. And we know that these two departments, their job is to render services to these other two production departments. And at the same time, remember, a service department can render a service to another service department. But we'll see that later on, if who or which service department is rendering a service to another service department. But not all the service departments are rendering services to other service departments. But service departments, they do render services to the main production departments. Now let me just try to simplify what I'm saying. What do I mean about service department, production department allocating or rendering its service to other departments? Let us just use an example of a university. Let us say we have this university, and this university has departments. We can have the Department of Science or Science Department. We can have Department of Economics and Management Sciences. We can have the Department of Law and other main departments. Remember, a university, its main purpose is to produce education, if I may use the language, to produce education, meaning their main activity is rendering the services of education. This is the law department, either in the science department, economics and management sciences, or law. But this department, they need some assistance. They need assistance from other departments. And these other departments can be departments such as maintenance, meaning there must be a maintenance department. There must also be IT help desk. IT help desk, that is the IT help desk there at the end. IT help desk. Then I also want to add another department here at the beginning, the main department, which is IT department. This is IT department, IT department. So now we have all these departments which this institution is doing its main business. But these departments, we call them service department. Why do you say service department? Because a university is not in business in order to do maintenance. This is maintenance. The university is not in business in order to do maintenance, but maintenance is needed to maintain some things in the law department, maintain the condition of the department in commerce, EMS, maintain the condition of the department in science, and maintain the condition of the department in IT, and also maintain the condition of the department or the building in the IT help desk. So now we can see that although the maintenance department is a service department, but it can or it does render its services to another service department. Now we have this IT help desk. Remember, this is IT as a department where there is qualification in information technology. But now the IT help desk is the help desk that is used to help students in all these departments in terms of their IT issues, network, software issues, and also the staff within the department, making sure that computers have the latest softwares and everything is up and running. If there is a computer lab that is an issue, they call the IT help desk to come and help these departments. So now that means this IT help desk, its main activity is to render services by helping all these departments. That means the expenses that are incurred in this department, they don't belong here, but they must be allocated to the department in which the help desk was rendering its services. And at the same time, as I mentioned, that the maintenance department, its main purpose is to make sure that all the departments are well maintained. That means now the maintenance department there are employees in this department who are being paid salaries, and they are paid salaries to make sure that this department is well maintained. This department well maintained, well maintained, well maintained, and well maintained. Meaning the salaries that are being paid here and the electricity being incurred here and other overheads that are being incurred in the maintenance department, they are incurred in order for this department to render the best service in terms of maintenance in the IT help desk, best service in law, best service in ENS, best service in commerce and in science, and best service in IT. So now meaning whatever cost that we incur in the maintenance department, it does not belong there, but it belongs to the department in which the maintenance department is rendering its services to. So now with the IT help desk, most of the times maintenance, they don't have computer labs because they are just there to make sure that the environment is well maintained. So the IT help desk is likely not to be helping people here because there are no students here. Maybe there are not computers, but they make sure that the maintenance in the campus is very well. So the IT help desk might not render services here, but we are very sure that IT help desk will help students and computer labs in the law, help students and computer labs in this EMS, and help students and computer labs in the science building or department, and help students and computer labs in the IT department. So now, meaning all the salaries, the electricity that is being incurred in this IT help desk, it is incurred in order for this department to render its best services in this department, best service in this department, best service in this department, so that all our main departments, they are functioning very well as they're supposed to function. So now that's why at the end of the day, meaning after we have done primary allocation, the amount of the maintenance department and the IT department will end up being allocated in the main departments because the costs of the service department are incurred in order to maintain the main departments. I'm saying the main department referring to the production department from a cost accounting production company point of view. So I hope I've made myself very clear in terms of the overview and the introduction. So now in other words, this service department Y and Z, their main activity is to make sure that this department are operating very well, they function very well. So they are being paid salaries and they incur electricity and probably depreciation is being incurred not for them but for rendering of the services to other departments. That is why now when we do secondary allocation, we must take all the amounts of the service department and we allocate them to our main production departments. Now we are given our basis of allocation from the value of the plant up to the machine hours. We'll do that when we do the allocation. And we are given the budgeted manufacturing overheads that must be classified, that have been classified and must be allocated now to our departments. We're given our cost from the depreciation of the plant of 40,000 up to 16,000 being the insurance of the plant. Then after we come to the provided information below, where now they say the absorption or predetermined overhead rate are based on the direct labor hours for department X and machine hours for department Y. That means when we do our POR, predetermined overhead rate which is done in the main departments, not in the service departments. It will be based on machine hours W and machine hours X and labor hours W. The secondary apportionment or allocation for the service departments are as follows. Y takes place according to machine hours and Z takes place according to the direct labor hours, and department Y is allocated first and then department Z. So that means when we do secondary allocation, we must start with department Y, then after we go to department Z. Then after we are given actual information in terms of machine hours and in terms of labor hours for both of the department X and department Y. Now, we are required to calculate the POR for each of the two departments. Remember, we have two departments, which is W and X. YZ are service departments. So these are the two departments that we are to calculate our predetermined overhead rate or our recovery or absorption rate. Then we know that in order for us to do our POR, we first need to allocate, classify our overheads, do primary and secondary. Then the total of the secondary allocation will be the one that we'll be using to calculate our POR using our basis of allocation that we were told to use. Now we come to now the second part, which we are to indicate at least two methods of allocating overheads from the service department to the production department. It could be machine hours and labor hours. Then after we have the table that are provided for you, I'll just be writing in this table. So now let's go to our overheads and we allocate our overheads. Our overheads, the first one, it is depreciation of the plant. Remember, what do? We are allocating overheads. What do we use? We use the basis of allocation. These are the basis of allocation. So now these are what we use to allocate all these manufacturing overheads. So now we look at the depreciation and we need to be able to identify the base on how to allocate this depreciation. This is the depreciation of what? Of the plant, 40,000. And we know that a plant, it is the cemented machines that are cemented in the floor of the production department. Now that means we need to use the value of the plant because the depreciation amount will be based on the value of the plant. And in this case, the value of the plant is 400,000 department W and 500,000 department X. But we have nothing under the service departments because our service departments are not used to produce anything. So they cannot have the plant because a plant is the cemented machine on the floor that is used to produce our product. But it's normally for huge manufacturing companies that manufacture big products. Like motor industry, they use plants. And companies that produce machines, they will definitely be using plants, meaning machines that are cemented, well structured on the floor. So it has to be that service department will not have the value of the plant, meaning only the production departments that have the plant. So now how do we allocate this cost? We now have to say 500,000 plus 500,000 will give us a total of 1 million. Then I will say for the first department, which is department W, is 500,000 divided by 1 million. Then we multiply this by 40,000, the amount that we are allocating. Then now meaning the depreciation of the plant will be 20,000 and 20,000 in each of the two departments. Depreciation of the plant, basis of the allocation, it is the value of the plant, and the total it is 40,000 rands. And for this department it is 20,000, second department 20,000, and we don't have the plant in the service department, so that will be 00 or dash dash. Then we have allocated now our depreciation of the plant. We go to the rent of the building. Remember, we have one building, and this building has 4 departments. And in these 4 departments, we have 2 of them that are used in the production, and there's 2 of them that are used in the rendering of the services to all other or to other departments. So now in this case, that means the rent of the building must be allocated according to the department that has occupied more space, because we have only one building. So now in this case, it will not be the value of the building in terms of rent allocation based, but it will be based on the space, because we only have one building that has one value. But this building has been occupied by different departments, and these different departments have occupied spaces that have been allocated to us, meaning the floor area or the area in meter square. So now we need to get the total of this floor area in terms of how much is this floor area, so that we are able to allocate rent to the department that has utilized more space. Then it will be 750 plus 400 plus 250 plus 100. That means we have total of 1,500 total square meter for the space of this entire building, of which now we need to allocate the cost of 120,000 to this 4 departments. 120,000 is what we are allocating. So what do? We say, first, for which department are we allocating this 120? We are allocating for the department W. So we say 750 divided by the total of 1,500, which is that total of the area in square meters. Then we multiply this by 120,000. Then this gives us a total of 60,000 rents. It will be 750 divided by 1.5, and we multiply this by 120,000. 120,000, we get 60,000 that must be allocated in the first department. This is the rent of the building. What do we use? We use floor space, and the amount that we are allocating, it is 120,000, of which in the first department we are allocating 60,000. In the second department, it will be 400, divide this by 1,500. Then we multiply this by 120,000. We get, there must be something wrong there, 400 divided by 1.5 equals, multiply this by 120,000. We get 32,000. We get 32,000.00, just round off to the whole number nearest reference. Then the third space occupied by department Y is 250 divided by total space 1.5, multiply this by 120,000. We get 20,000 as the cost to be allocated to the first service department. 20,000. Then the last one, it is 100 divide this by total space for all the department 1.5, we multiply this by 120,000, we get 8,000. So this is how we allocate. When you add all this for, it must give you 120,000. You can just verify that at your time. Then we now allocate the next overhead, which is electricity and power, and we know that electricity is using kilowatts. In this case, we will have to take the kilowatts as the base to allocate the electricity and water, but we are given only the kilowatts. In this case, it should have been just electricity, because we can at the same time use the floor space to allocate the electricity and water. But water is not really connected with the area, but with the consumption. So let us just use electricity. I'm just noting this one now. Only electricity, what are we using? We are using kilowatts of electricity, 2,600, 500, and 100. We need the total of this base of allocation. Then I will say we have 2,000 plus 600 plus 500 plus 100. This is the total kilowatts of 3,200. So we have 2, 6, 5, and 1. We are allocating an amount of how much? We are allocating an amount of 60,000 rands in this case. So now we say 2,000, divide this by 3.2 equals, multiply this by 60,000 rands. How much do we get? 37,500. That is to be allocated. The amount is 60,000. What are we allocating? We are allocating electricity, and we are using the kilowatts per hour, and we get 37,500 allocated in the first department. Second one, it is 600 divided by 3.2, and we multiply this by 60,000 rands, and after that we get 11,250. Then we have 500, divide this by 3.2, multiply this by 60,000 rands, we get 9,375. Last one is 100, divide by 3.2, multiply this by 60,000 rands, we get 1,875. If you say plus 9735 here, and you say plus 11,250 equals, and you say plus 37,500, where 37,500 plus 11,250 plus 9375 plus 1875, we get 60,000. So meaning we have allocated the amount to all the departments it's supposed to have been. Then we allocate the next overhead, protective and safety clothing. Therefore now, meaning this company is buying protective clothing for the safety of their staff. The question is, for us to incur 25,000 on protective clothes, what will be the reason? Is because we have many employees. So now we are buying this protective clothing, meaning safety clothing, safety boots, gloves, based on the number of employees we have. We buy this safety clothes based on the number of employees we have. That is why the base of allocation will be the number of employees, 75 plus 50, 15, and 10. We see how much do we get the total number of employees in all these departments. Then now we have 75 plus 50 plus 15 plus 10. Now the question is, why do we buy safety clothing for the service department? Because service department is not in the production department. Remember, the staff in the service department, when they render services here, maybe they need to come to this department and render their services. So now, because this is not a safe environment to wear any shoe, so they have to wear the shoes that are safe for them to enter in this department. And also this one, they need to wear safety shoes when they enter this department or this department, doing their duty of rendering the services to the main production department. So now it will be 150 total of the employees, of which 75 of these 150 employees, they are in department W, and the cost of the protective clothing is 25,000. So we multiply this by 25,000, we get 12.5. So now this will be protective clothing. What do we use? We use number of employees. How much are we allocating? It is 25,000, which is 12,500 first department. Then we go to the second one, which is 50. Divide this by 150, times by 25,000. 8,333. We have 8,333. This was 50 divided by 150, multiply this by the cost of 25,000, 8,333. Then we round it off. Then the last or the second last one, it is 15 employees, divide by total of 150 for all of them, multiply this by 25,000, it will be 2,500. Then we record the 2.5. Then we have the last one, which is 10 employees in the last service department out of 150. They have a less number. Multiply this by the cost that was incurred. Then we get to 1,667. 1,667 plus 8,333, which is 9,999, meaning we have 10,000 in rounding off, plus 12.5 plus 2.5, and this gives us the same 25,000 rands. Now we go to the next cost called overhead, canteen or catering, which is 30,000. Assuming that all employees, they are making use of the canteen or the services of the canteen and catering, that means the department that has many number of employees, we need to allocate more cost on that one. That is why now canteen, because it is being used by employees, so the bigger the number of employees in the department, the more cost must be allocated to the catering or canteen. That means we are going to use now the number of employees here, because it is the number of employees that are used, or it is the employees who are using the catering or who are catering in the canteen. So now meaning we need to be applying the same base of allocation as we did before. Therefore now it will be 75, divide this by 150. We multiply this by the cost of 30,000. Multiply this by 30,000 rands, which gives us 15,000 rands. So now we allocate that 15,000 rands, which is from the 30,000 rands. We allocate 15, which is half of that. Then the next one, it is 50. If my memory still serves me, 50 divided by 150. We divide this by 150 and we multiply this by the total cost of 30,000 rands, which gives us 9,999, and we can round off this to 10,000. So we already have 25,000, only 5,000 left to be allocated to the other two departments. 15 divided by 150, multiply this by 30,000. This will give us 3,000. Then obviously the last one will be 2,000. Let us just verify. 10 over 150, multiply this by 30,000, we get 2,000.001. So 2,000 was the correct one. We were allocating here canteen, where we used the number of employees as we did before. 30,000 was the amount to be allocated. Then we come to the next one, insurance for the building and for the plant. And insurance for the building, we cannot base it on the value of the building. Besides, we don't have the value of the building as the cost. Even if we had the value of the building, let us say there was value of the building here. Value of the building will be in which department? Because the value of the building, we have only one building, and this building has 4 departments. So that's why the value of the building is not there. We have one building that has 4 departments. So we can say, how much is the value of this department in a building? How much is the value of this department in a building? No, we only have one building. So now we can only use now the floor space, meaning out of this building, which department is occupying more space. Therefore, the department that is occupying more space, it must incur more cost of the insurance. And the department that has occupied the second highest number of space, then it must be the one that incurs the second highest cost of the insurance. And the one with the low space that it has occupied must pay little or must be allocated small amount of the cost of the insurance. So that's why now we use the space to allocate the insurance in our building. Now we have 24,000 rands as an amount, and we already know that the floor space amounted to 1,500, if you still remember that one. So now that will mean we say 750, divide this by 1.5, we multiply this by the cost of the space being 24,000, the value of the overhead being 24,000. Multiply this by, I don't think that is right, we have 750 divided by 1.5 equals, multiply this by 24,000. Then 12,000 will be allocated now to the first department, of which our total cost that we are allocating is 24,000, and 12,000 comes here. Then after we say now again the second base of allocation, which is our area in square meter, it will be 400. Divide this by 1.5, multiply this by 24,000. Then we get 6,400 for the second department. We get 6,400 for the second department. Then we go to the third department, where the area in square meters, it is 250. Then 250 divide this by 1.5 equals, multiply this by 24,000. This gives us 4,000 to be allocated in the last or second last department, which is the first service department from the left, 4,000 rands. Then after the last area in square meter, it is 100 meter square. 100 meter square, divide this by the total area of the entire building, which is 1.5. Then we discover that this department is occupying 0.06% of the space, which is 7% otherwise. Then now it means it must pay 7% of the insurance. Out of that 24,000, it must pay 16,000. Can't be 16,000 rands. We have 100, divide this by 1.5, multiply this by 24,000. It is 1,600. So now this is the 7% that it has occupied. So it's paying 7% of the value of the insurance. This is insurance of the building, which is based on the area in square meters of floor space. We go to the last manufacturing overhead that need to be allocated. It is the insurance of the plant. We do have the value of the plant, and we know that service departments don't have the plant because they don't produce. So the plant is only in department W and department X. Service department, they don't use the plant because a plant is used to produce a huge product, like a car or a company that is manufacturing machines, huge machines. They will use the plant to manufacture those machines, or they'll use the plant to manufacture cars so that the machines don't move, meaning they cement and they make them to be well cemented on the floor. So now, in other words, when it comes to the insurance of the plant, remember the plant is in the building. So now it will be based on the value of the plant. We just divide this by 2. Why? Because the value of the plant in department W is 500,000, and the value of the plant in second department, it is 500,000, which gave us 1 million, meaning it is 50-50. So now meaning in this case, the insurance of the plant, you mentioned that is of the plant. What are we using? We're using the value of the plant. And the value of the plant, it is the cost that we are allocating is 16,000, and 8,000 which goes to department W, and 8,000 going to department X and the service department. Because they don't have the plant, then we cannot allocate any cost that relates now to the plant, because we are paying the insurance for the plant. Then we now have done the primary allocation. Just to verify, primary allocation, it is done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overheads that had been allocated, and I've allocated all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 overheads that have been allocated to our departments, all 4 of them. Then now this is what we call primary allocation. What we have just done is what we call primary allocation. Then after, we need to calculate the cost of the primary allocation. Then after, we do the secondary allocation. Then department W 20,000 plus 60,000 plus 37,500. I hope I don't make mistake. Plus 12.5 plus 15,000 plus 12,000 plus 8,000. We have 165,000. Then after, we have 20,000 plus 32,000 plus 11,250 plus 8,333 plus 10,000 plus 6,400 plus 8,000. 6,400 plus 8,000. We get 95,983. Service department number 1, 20,000 plus 9,375 plus 2,500 plus 3,000 plus 4,000. Then this is giving us the total primary allocation of 38,875. Last one is 8,000 plus 1,875 plus 1,667 plus 20,000. No, that is 2,000, not 20,000. I remember that one. It is 2,000. I hope you have identified. Obviously, brilliant students always identify this because you are brilliant as you are listening. Now 2,000 plus 1,600. So now this will be the last service department that we are adding. 8,000, 1,875, 1,667, 2,000 plus 1.6. So now this is the total cost of 15,142. 142. That 2 is come from that 5 and a 7 there. 15,142. Then this is our primary allocation. Then we'll have our total here. And now if you add all these overheads here in total, they must give you the same amount of the cost of all the overheads when they are added together. The sum of this must be the same as the total of this, because it's the same figures. So make sure that you have that very well done. Now, something else that I also want to highlight to you in terms of the principle and the basics is the fact that, and I'm not going to test this one. If you say this plus this plus this plus this, it must give you this total, of which this total here is equal to the total of the overheads that you were allocating, meaning that are the total. So please do verify that one. I'm not going to be verifying it for you. Delete. Okay, thanks for that. So verify the accuracy also of my calculations. Then now we do secondary allocation, and we are told that our secondary allocation, it is done according to secondary allocation or apportionment is done for the service department according to department Y. What do we use? Machine hours. Department Z, what do we use? Direct labor hours. Who is to be allocated first? Y. Y is using which base? Y is using machine hours. So now we need to go to our department Y when we do now our secondary allocation, where we use machine hours. We use machine hours. This will be machine hours. Then we start with the department Y. We are instructed to do so. We say minus 38,875. Then we draw a line here, because if we are allocating a service department, this amount must become 0 at the end of the day. Most of the time we start with the last department, then we come to the second department, meaning the one from the right. But in this case they said we must start with the department which is department Y. Then now in this case, what do? We are allocating this amount. Which base do we use to allocate this amount? We are using machine hours. So we need to look for the machine hours in all other departments except the department that we are allocating. In other words, we are using machine hours. Let's verify that it is really machine hours. Department Y is according to machine hours. Yes, that is correct. So now that means we are to say machine hours, department W and department X. So we don't have machine in the service department. Then that is why we don't have machine hours in the service department. Why? Because the service department are not producing, so they can't have machines, but they can only have the plant, they can only render services. It's only the main departments that can have the machines in the plant. So that's why now we also don't have the machine hours in those departments. Similarly with the plant, we do not have the value of the plant, because these service departments are not producing anything. So there is no way they could have machine hours. Now that means we have 1.5 here as the total machine hours. So in other words, now we are to allocate this amount of 38,875. And how do we allocate it? We say total of the base of allocation being 1,400. Then we say for department W 1,000, divide this by 1.5. Where the 1,000 coming from? The 1,000, it is the machine hours for department W. Divide this by the total machine hours for the two departments, which is 1.5. Sorry, I just said 150, but I mentioned it as 1.5. So we say 1,000, divide this by 1.5, multiply this by the total of 38,875. Let me just go and verify the 38,875. So how much will be allocated? It will be for this department 25,917. Then we can just say minus 38,875 and the rest of 12,958 should be the correct amount, but let me just verify it. We say now 500, divide this by 1.5 equals multiply by 38,875. It is 12,958. So there is no machine hours to be allocated in department Z, because department Z does not have the machine. So meaning this service department only rendered services to where there are machines, but it did not render services to this department where there is no machine hours. Then now we have allocated that one accurately or correctly. Then we go to the second part of the secondary allocation. What do we do now? We say now the total before, meaning the total of the primary. Just change the color there. We say now the total of the primary. This total plus here, we say plus here, and we say plus here. then this one will be brought at the bottom as is because there's nothing to be added. Otherwise, add 15,142. Then we say 38,875 minus 38,875 is equal to 0 already. So we don't do anything about that one. We come to the first department. We say 165,000 plus 25,917. How much do we get? We get 190,917. 190,917. Department X, it is 95,983 plus 12,958. 12,958. We get the total of 108,941. Then after, now remember there's still this service department that we need to render its service. This one is done. There's nothing to be done about it. It's already been allocated. Now it's 0 there. Then we can allocate this one to only the 2 production departments. Then we do that. Now how do we allocate our department Z? What base do we use to allocate this department? Sort of going down. Now just going to the previous question I've recorded. Now we go to the requirements. Our department Z is according to the direct labor hours. We need to look for the direct labor hours. Now our direct labor hours, we do have direct labor hours for all the departments. Direct labor hours, we have them throughout the departments. But our focus, we are allocating to this department and this department because we are done and dusted with this one. And we can't reallocate back to the department Z, yet we are allocating department Z. So it will be 40,000 and 30,000, meaning now the total hours will only be 30,000 hours because this department has been allocated and is done and dusted. And because we are busy allocating this department, we don't reallocate to itself again. So now we don't take the base that has been allocated in the department that we are really allocating it to all other departments or to the main production departments. That means now we have 30,000, 40, and we have 70,000, sorry, we have 70,000, meaning 40 and 30. Sometimes I speak and write something different because the mind is working very hard and working very fast at the same time, thinking and writing and explaining at the same time. Now we have 40,000 and 30,000 being total labor hours of 70,000. And we are allocating, what are we allocating? The last service department. What do you do first? Whatever department or service department you are reallocating, first thing, write the same amount in brackets, meaning minus 15,142. Then you are allocating this whole amount. That means at the end of the day, it must be 0. Then now, how do we allocate it? We allocate it using the labor hours, which is 40,000. Divide this by the total labor hours of 70,000. We multiply this by the 15,142, meaning the amount that goes to the first department, which is W, will be 8,653. The rest, which is minus 15,142, will go to department X, which is 6,489. Let me just verify it. 30,000, divide this by 70,000 equals, multiply this by 15,142, that is 6,489. Yeah, that is correct. So now we need to close our primary allocation. Secondary allocation, in fact, 190,917 plus 8,653. It gives us 199,570. Then we say 108,941 plus 6,489, which is 115,430. So now this is our final manufacturing overheads, or allocated manufacturing overheads. So now this is completely done and dusted. Therefore now we have the total production overheads that has been allocated. That's right there, it is the final or the total manufacturing total production overheads. This is our total production overheads for the two departments, which is Department W and Department X. Now they've been allocated. What does this mean at the same time? This means when you are given manufacturing overheads in the question, so before that I want to highlight that this is plus, adding there, and this is plus. When you are given an amount, one amount for the manufacturing overheads, they say manufacturing overheads are this amount. That means they have done all the primaries, they've done all this table for you. Then after they've done primary and secondary, they came up to this amount, which is for this department and this department. I don't know where is this one going. So now they've done everything for you and they came up with this amount, and they are giving you an amount where there are hidden calculations that were done behind the scene to do primary and secondary. Therefore now we have our manufacturing overheads now that have been allocated to our main departments. Then we were required to calculate the predetermined overhead rate for this department, which is Department W and Department X. Let us check what was the requirement. We are required to calculate the predetermined overhead rate for each of the two departments. Now for each of the two departments in two decimal places. Now we were required to do primary and secondary. Now when we're calculating our POR, we need to know which base are we supposed to use. It says the absorption of overhead rate is based on direct labor hours for Department W and for Department X. So now for Department X, machine hours. So for POR, we need to use labor hours for Department W. So now we go to our actual labor hours. Our actual labor hours, we have our actual labor hours for Department W, actual labor hours for Department W, and for Department X we have the total of the two. Then for actual machine hours we have 200 and 300 for Department W and Department X. So just get the total. This will give us an amount of 500 labor hours, and this will give us 1,250 in terms of the actual labor hours. So now these are the labor hours, and remember, what do we have? We have manufacturing overheads, and this manufacturing overheads, it is for Department W, and we have manufacturing overhead for Department X, and we are looking for the POR for Department W and Department X using labor hours and machine hours. So we need to be very clear that when we are dealing with Department W, the labor hours here they are, and for Department X we focus on the machine hours as the base to allocate these overheads, or as the base to calculate our POR in fact. Now that means when we're calculating now our POR, which is predetermined overhead rate, there is the figure that we have at the bottom there. Let me just use this worksheet so that we can see everything on the same page. Want to see everything on the same page. If does it work? Okay, just divide there. Yes. Now it means we are calculating POR for department W, and we are calculating POR predetermined overhead rate for department WX, this one. Then we have W 199,570 divide, and here we have 115,000. 115, this should be different amount. We added two figures, 108,000 941 plus 6,489 112,430. Thank you for that. Very much apology, kind of a long question. So that means this could have been 112,430. 112,430. Then we have our 112,430. We divide by the machine hours here. In the previous one, we divide that by the labor hours. So now we have these figures. Just to verify the last one again, the first department, if I did everything correct, we had 190,000 the first department, 917 plus 8,653, 199,570. That is perfect. 199,570. That I'm cool with that one. Verified. 108,941 plus 6,489. This is 115,430. Oh, I was right in the previous one, but it is just 430. So I just left a zero there. I was like, hey, but I normally get things right. It is 115,430. So I just left a zero there. 115,430. 115,430. Sorry again for that one. Then we go to our basis of allocation now. The first one, it is on labor hours. Second one is on machine hours. So we have 750. Our labor hours, machine hours 300. So we divide here by 750. We get our 18 rands, and we divide here by 300. We get our 18 rands. So that is, divide this by 300. We get to our POR as 384.77 cents per machine hour. The first one will be a total of our overhead of 199,570, 199,570. Divide this by 750, which is our hours of labor for department W. And what do we get by dividing that? We get 266 rands 9 cents per what? Per labor hour, or per direct labor hour. So this is what was, maybe there will be 1 mark here and 1 mark, or 2 mark, 2 mark, but gist of the questions or gist of the marks are based on the calculation that you have done, the primary, secondary, and the tertiary allocation. So guys, this is all. I will stop here. If you have any questions, please do ask them. If you have any comments, if I did not calculate something right, please just highlight me and say, there you did not calculate the figures very well, because when there is too many calculations in a question like this one, it can be easy sometimes to to make a mistake and add a 0 there, or don't add a 0, or whatever the number might be. But I try to be as accurate, but I've explained the basics and the principles, so that even if I might make a numbers mistake, but you will know exactly what to do and how to do. With that, guys, thank you very much. God be with you. You've been lovely listeners, and also I hope you were taking notes. Thank you. God be with you.